Alright, here's the tensioner out of that Riviera. You can see this take-up spring has been bent pretty far out by the dial. These were typically a little tighter bent here so that they're not sticking way out in front where you'd catch them while you're turning the dial here. This spring seems to feel okay, but this tensioner is real dirty. This tensioner has the dial on the front, and it's just like Singer tensioners of a similar age, where it's got the pin in the back of this nut that engages with the dial. So you just have to hold the press the dial in and then unscrew the nut. And then there's two washers here, spring, the lifter for the pin. Pin fell out. And then we've got two tension discs. And then in the back of the tensioner, there's three notches that this outer housing can ride on this pin. And those are to help you line up the marker for the dial and this slot the tension discs are in. So you can just move that around a little bit to get the dial marker where you want it, based on how the spring is in here. There is no retainer screw on this body here, so the stem in the center must be screwed in. And because this spring appears to be working fine, I am not going to unscrew the stem because the spring is okay. If this spring was broken, then we'd have to try and get the stem to unscrew from the body so we could get a new spring in there. But I'm going to dip all this stuff in the sonic cleaner. But first, you'll note I laid out all my pieces in order as I took them out of the tensioner. I'm going to take a picture of that so that I have it for reference to reassemble. Okay. Got this tensioner cleaned up. I grabbed my photo, put all of my parts out in the order that I had in the photo from taking it apart. So it's time to reassemble this. This cup goes on the outside, and remember it's got these three notches, so it can go 1, 2, 3, and that helps decide where the up for the tensioner is, because it's got the line printed on it. I am going to set this to the middle notch. And that up indicator is how far this take-up spring is going to spring. So if we look at the tensioner from the end here, my finger is at up, because the middle notch lined up with the top of where the tensioner will be, and it allows the spring to spring down to 90 degrees. If this cup is set to the left notch, so that this notch is up, there's less room for the take-up spring to move down to the 90-degree position. Likewise, if it gets set to the right-hand notch in here, the line for the top of the tensioner gives almost the full travel of this spring block for the tensioner take-up spring. So when in doubt, just pick the middle, see how it works. So we'll stick that in the center, or the middle. Drop the release pin down the middle to make sure that we have that in place. And then the tension discs go in. And the tension discs on this machine are both the same, so there's no need to check which is which. The release washer there has the bar on it, or sometimes that's a cup shape, and then our cone goes in. This notched washer goes in place, and then this second washer has this tab that fits into the notches on that first washer. That tab is what stops the dial face from turning. The stop on this dial face is at 0. Instead of some machines, they put that stopper down on 5. So the stopper's up at 0 on the dial, so our notch, we want to pick the notch that lines up with the top of where our tensioner is. And then we can set our or we could, set our dial on and then I'm just holding the dial in place, I'm not compressing the spring. Put our knob on and then compress the spring a teeny bit, turn the knob a little bit so that it so there's not enough tension on the beehive spring in there to hold the number dial against the back of this knob. And then when we get the tensioner installed and tested, we'll just, when we get our tension where we want it, just push in on the dial knob and turn the dial to the setting of 4 or 5, and that will set the tension range for us. So, alright, we'll stick this back in the machine and keep working on that machine. So when I grabbed this machine, the knob that's supposed to be on here came off. The screw that holds it in is reverse thread, left-hand thread. But the reason the knob came off is because this stem here was completely locked up, and that's the stopper for the forward and reverse control on the machine. So I found a good fitting screwdriver, big and wide and square, that would get into both sides of the stem, and I put penetrating fluid on it and I worked it back and forth until it came out, and now it's time to reassemble this and adjust this dial that shows our stitch length, because the dial here is, this collar drives a little drives that indicator. So I'm going to make sure and put oil on this stem so that when it goes in as easily as possible. And then I'm going to set this paddle here for 0. My dial says 0. And then the stem has to get driven in as far as it will go. There, I'll set that like so. And that's still not driving in as far as I want it to, so I'm gonna okay, now it seems to be stuck. I guess I'll have to pull it out and check if it's bent or something. But I need to find some room to get on that. Okay. Clean this more thoroughly. Still really tight, so I think there's a very, very tiny bend in this stem that I don't know how to clear out. So I'm gonna tighten this up. Yeah, I cleaned all the threads, and it's just so sticky once it gets into a certain point. So I thought it was a little easier to get in. I was gonna just run it in and try to make it work itself out, but it's not cooperating. Is that gonna go easier without the spring on it? Oh yeah, that spring is really causing a lot of trouble. Okay. Well, without the spring in the way, this just goes right in and comes out, so. And try this again now that we've run it in and out the bottom of the hole a bit. There. That's all I needed, was to take the spring off and run it in and out the hole a bit. So, alright, so with this all the way in and holding the reverse from going anywhere, we need to make sure that our dial okay, and that spring is going to come out to like there. So we'll set the dial to close to 0, since the there dial on 0, and get our I forgot to grab the knob out of the cleaner. Alright, we grab the knob and we got our stopper set in for the lever in the middle for 0, dial set for 0, and The knob goes on the center here. And this left-hand screw goes in. Tightens the knob on the stem, and now... Oh. What about that is not working right? There must be a drive pin missing on the inside of this knob. Because there's a... Oh, wait, I have an idea. There's a spring here. Oh, I thought I saw there was a... Is that spring supposed to wedge into this? Okay, I think I know what's going on here. The spring is misshapen. The spring is what's supposed to grab and drive this collar that moves the dial. And it is not. It's not engaging that like it should. And I don't know if there's supposed to be a drive collar, you know, a little drive washer in here or not, because I did not have I didn't have a drive washer when that knob came off. But that would be a likely, yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to figure something out about how, because this, I think why it's jamming when it gets down further in on the need to make sure that I get this spiral. Yep, okay. So this is alright. I gotta poke around in there and see what I might be able to do to fix this problem. Rats. Aha! Well, there's the spot on this that where the post goes in properly. So the threads on it are uneven, and you have to make sure when you're putting it back in that you find the exact spot to put the threads back on. Because, oh yeah, that spiral has, I don't know if you can see, there are 6 threads started on here, so there's 6 positions where this could start, and if the threads aren't exactly correct in every position, it'll bind except for the single way to start the threads. So that's that, and then yeah, I think I'm gonna look into I'm going to figure out how to drive this off of our knob here, but I don't know what the solution to that problem is yet, so we'll take a look at that and then I'll be back.